Take a moment and think about the last time everything felt like it was falling apart. Not just one problem, but everything, stacking on top of each other. Work starts going wrong. Plans begin to fail. Things you were certain about suddenly don't feel stable anymore, and at first, you try to handle it. You tell yourself it's just a bad day, it'll pass. But it doesn't. It builds, slowly, quietly, until one day, it hits all at once. And in that moment, you feel it. That pressure in your chest, that tightness in your thoughts, that overwhelming sense that you're losing control. Maybe it was something sudden, a message you didn't expect, a call that changed everything. Or maybe it was quieter than that, a slow realization that things are not going the way you planned, and your mind starts racing. What do I do now? How did this happen? Why is everything going wrong at the same time? And the more you think, the worse it gets. Because now it's not just the situation, it's your thoughts about the situation, your fears, your assumptions, your imagination, all working against you. And before anything actually gets worse, you already feel like everything is collapsing. That's how powerful your mind is. It can turn one problem into 10. Now imagine this. You wake up one morning, and something feels different. You don't know why yet, but there's a slight tension in the air. You reach for your phone, notifications, messages, emails. Nothing unusual at first, and then you see it. An email, short, direct, cold. Due to restructuring, your position has been eliminated. You read it once, then again, slower this time, trying to make sure you didn't misunderstand. But you didn't, and just like that, everything shifts. Your routine, gone. Your sense of stability, gone. The plans you were building, suddenly uncertain. You sit there, staring at the screen, not moving, not reacting, just processing, and then it starts. The thoughts, fast, uncontrolled. What am I going to do now? How will I recover from this? What will people think? And within minutes, your mind has already created a future where everything goes wrong. Not because it happened, but because you imagined it. And this is where most people don't even realize what's happening. They think the problem is the event, the job loss, the bad news, the situation. But that's not where the real damage begins. It begins inside, in the way your mind reacts. Because now your thoughts are no longer helping you. They're amplifying fear, turning uncertainty into panic. And suddenly, you're not just dealing with a problem, you're dealing with a storm inside your own head. And this doesn't just happen with jobs. It happens everywhere. A business you spent months building fails. A relationship you believed in suddenly ends. An opportunity you worked toward disappears. Or even something quieter, like watching everyone around you move forward while you feel stuck in the same place. And in every one of these moments, the pattern is the same. Something happens, something unexpected, something difficult, and then something else happens inside you. Your thoughts speed up. Your emotions intensify. And without even noticing, you lose control. Not of life, but of your response to it. And that is the moment everything truly begins to fall apart. And once that storm starts, it doesn't just stop. It follows you through the day, into the night, into every quiet moment. You try to distract yourself. You scroll your phone. You watch something. You talk to someone, but it's still there. That weight in your mind, that constant noise in the background. And the hardest part is, you start losing clarity. Simple decisions feel heavy. Small problems feel bigger than they are. And everything starts to feel urgent, even when it's not. You begin to rush your thinking, rush your decisions, trying to escape the feeling instead of understanding it. And that's where people make their worst mistakes, not when things are calm, but when they feel overwhelmed. Because in that state, you're not thinking clearly. You're reacting. You're trying to fix everything at once, trying to regain control instantly. But the more you try, the more it slips, and slowly you start to feel something deeper. helplessness. Like no matter what you do, it's not enough. Like you're falling behind, while everything keeps moving forward. And this is the moment most people break. Not because the situation is impossible, but because their mind is no longer stable. They've lost control internally. And once that happens, everything outside feels worse. Because now, every problem feels bigger than it is. Every delay feels like failure. Every uncertainty feels like danger. And your world starts shrinking, not physically, but mentally. You stop seeing options. You stop thinking clearly. You start reacting emotionally to everything, and the chaos outside becomes chaos inside. Now here's something most people never notice at this point. The original problem is no longer the biggest issue. It's your reaction to it, your thoughts, your interpretation, your fear of what might happen next. That becomes heavier than the situation itself. And that's why two people can face the same problem but experience it completely differently. One collapses under pressure, the other stays steady. Not because their life is easier, but because their mind is stronger, because they didn't let the situation take control of them. And that difference is everything. Because once you lose control of your mind, you lose your ability to respond wisely. You start acting out of fear, making decisions out of panic, saying things you don't mean. And later, when everything settles, you realize something. It wasn't just the situation that hurt you, it was how you reacted to it, and that realization is uncomfortable because it means part of the chaos came from within. But at the same time, that realization is powerful, because if your reaction created part of the problem, then your reaction can also change it. And that's where everything begins to shift. But here's where something important happens. Something most people never experience because they never slow down enough to see it. In the middle of all that chaos, there is a small moment, almost invisible. A gap between what is happening and how you respond to it. Most people never notice it because they are moving too fast inside their own mind. Thinking, reacting, overthinking, trying to fix everything at once. But that gap is always there, and if you become aware of it, everything starts to change. Because in that gap, nothing has been decided yet. Not your reaction, not your next step, not your emotional response. It is still open. And that is where your power exists. The Stoics trained their entire philosophy around this one idea. Not controlling events, but controlling response. Because events will never wait for you. Life will not slow down just because you are overwhelmed. Things will happen suddenly, unexpectedly, sometimes unfairly. But even in those moments, there is always one thing that remains untouched. Your mind before it reacts. Now think about that carefully. Right after something goes wrong, there is a split second before panic takes over, before fear builds, before emotion starts driving your decisions. That split second is everything. Because in that moment, you still have choice. You can react instantly, or you can pause. And that pause is not weakness. It is awareness. It is control returning. It is you stepping back into yourself. Because when you don't pause, your emotions decide for you. Fear decides. Anger decides. Stress decides. But when you do pause, even for a moment, you interrupt that chain. And suddenly, you are not reacting blindly anymore. You are observing. And once you can observe, you can choose. The Stoics believed something very simple, but extremely powerful. That freedom does not come from controlling life. It comes from controlling your interpretation of life, because the event itself is neutral. It is your mind that gives it meaning. A job loss can be a collapse, or it can be a redirection. A failure can be an ending, or it can be feedback. A setback can be destruction, or it can be adjustment. Nothing outside changes in that moment. Only your interpretation does, and that interpretation decides your next action. Now here's the shift. When you realize this deeply, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and you start asking, "What is my next response?" Not emotionally, not impulsively, but consciously. And this is where control slowly returns. Not over the situation, but over yourself. And that is the only control that ever truly matters. Because once you regain control of your response, you are no longer trapped inside the situation. You are observing it. You are responding to it, not being consumed by it. And slowly, something inside you settles. The urgency reduces. The panic softens. The noise in your mind begins to quiet. Not because the problem disappeared, but because you stopped feeding it with fear. And in that silence, clarity returns. And now, something begins to change, not outside, but inside you. Because when you stop reacting to everything, when you stop feeding every thought with fear, when you stop rushing to fix what you cannot control, something unexpected happens. Silence starts to return. At first, it feels unfamiliar, because your mind is used to noise, used to overthinking, used to running through worst-case scenarios. But slowly, that noise begins to fade, and in its place, clarity starts to appear. You begin to see things differently. The situation hasn't changed, but you have. And that changes everything. Because now, you are no longer inside the storm. You are observing it. And from that place, you can finally breathe again. This is what the Stoics understood deeply. Calm is not something that comes after life becomes easy. Calm is something you create in the middle of difficulty, not by escaping it, but by not letting it enter you. Because the world will always be unpredictable. People will always act in ways you cannot control. Situations will always shift without warning. But your mind, your response, your interpretation, that remains yours. And when you protect that space, when you stop letting external chaos define your internal state, you become steady. Not because life is stable, but because you are. And that is a different kind of strength, a quiet strength, a controlled strength. A strength that does not need to prove itself. Because now, you are no longer reacting to life moment by moment. You are choosing how to meet it. And that changes your entire experience of reality. The same problems still exist, but they no longer control you. The same uncertainty remains, but it no longer defines you, because you are no longer fighting everything outside. You are mastering what is inside. And over time, this becomes your identity. Not someone who avoids chaos, but someone who stays grounded inside it. Not someone who never feels pressure, but someone who does not collapse under it. Not someone who controls life, but someone who controls themselves within life. And that is what true strength looks like. So the next time everything feels like it is falling apart, remember this: you do not need to fix everything immediately. You do not need to understand everything instantly. You do not need to have control over the world. All you need is control over your next response. Because in that single moment, you are not powerless. You are not lost. You are not overwhelmed. You are present, and presence is power. So breathe, pause, step back for a moment, and choose your response, because that small space between what happens and what you do next, that is where your life is shaped. And if you can master that space, you will not just survive difficult moments, you will rise through them. Calm, clear, unshaken, unbreakable.